Hello, welcome one and all. That's another episode, only it's not just another. We got our first special episode of Bandwidth and Banter. Yeah, that was pretty good. You presented a mug. There's nothing in it though. That's okay. This isn't regular Bandwidth and Banter. This is Legacy of Loremasters, the new creation that we got going on. Looking forward to this. Tonight we have another special guest star on. The format of this is a bit different. Obviously, we're still going to be interviewing someone, but instead of just kind of general, fun, entertaining topics, we're specifically talking about Dungeons and Dragons. And especially, we want to dig down into the nitty-gritty of the DM style of the folks that we have on the show, because everybody who plays has a different kind of style, whether they're players or DMs. DMs especially, though, have a different kind of style. As long as you and your group are having fun, and you know, not causing anybody harm, then there's no wrong way to play. And yeah, so that's just the gist of what we got going on. Do you want to add anything before we bring our special guest on, Druid?
Bring him on!
All right, here we go. Starting it off strong with our man, JotunRedwulf. Jotun!
Yay!
Look at him. He's so cute and excited.
I'm adorable.
Yeah.
I'm like a baby. It's baby me. It's baby me.
So good. It's amazing. The little bottle guy. He's just a guy.
Yeah.
I'm just a small lad.
I like him. I like this. I like him a lot. I like all of your models, but this one is definitely adorable.
It's so good.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, wow. Let's jump straight to the topics today. First off, one more introduction. For those who haven't, I think everybody in chat right now knows JotunRedwulf, but if for any of our YouTube audience, that guy right up there is JotunRedwulf, and he's a fellow streamer and is recently honored us to become a streamer of Stormkeep, and he's a great DM. Primarily focuses on D&D related streams, but also like he does a lot of games, BG3 and several others. And I'm just super excited to pick his brain today about Dungeons and Dragons.
It's a very smooth marble, so there's not much to pick, but you're welcome to whatever you get.
I got a smooth brain.
I shall make claim to many parts of it today.
Alrighty. Hold on. We're gonna start off with origin stories. Everybody's origin story with D&D.
Yes, so we're going to actually do this today where all of us are going to share our origin story for folks who don't know it already. But we're going to kick it off with Jotun. Please describe to us your introduction to Dungeons and Dragons. You were telling us off stream that it was 25 years ago.
Yes.
Regale us with tales.
25 years ago. So I have been playing D&D and other such tabletop RPGs for 25 years. My first introduction to D&D, there was a local hobby store in my area, and I used to paint Warhammer miniatures. This is leading up to everything else. So I used to paint Warhammer miniatures. I still paint Warhammer miniatures. And I had gone in with my allowance to pick up some more skeletons. I needed more skeletons for my undead army, for my Warhammer Fantasy army. And I walk in, and they had just done their layout, and right across from that were the D&D books. And, you know, little 13-year-old me is like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and, check these books out. Well, I knew the owner because he'd always see me come in and buy stuff.
Yeah.
And his name's Trevor. He doesn't run the store anymore. The store's long since been closed. But you know what? I love this man, and I will shout him out all day.
Shout out to Trevor.
So I'm looking at the books, and he's like, are you interested in playing D&D? I'm like, oh, I don't know. He's like, I can't afford the books, because at the time, the player's handbook was only like $30. You know, it's not like a $60 book. You know, it's third edition. I'm like, nah, I can't afford that. And he's like, no, take it. And I'm like, I can't take it. You know, that's theft. He's like, no, I'm giving this to you. So Trevor gave me the third edition player's handbook. And I don't know if he knew what he was getting into with that, or if he had planned this. He gave me the book. I took it home. I perused it. And granted, it was just the player's handbook. And within a week, I was back, and I had purchased the monster manual. I had purchased the Dungeon Master's Guide. And like at the time, those were the only books that were out for it. They hadn't really put out a lot of mods for it. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then as I'm making my weekly trips in, we played Hero Clicks, the Marvel DC Hero Clicks game. And I'm in there, and they're like, hey, did you check out the Sunless Citadel? And I was like, what is the Sunless Citadel? And they took me over to the rack where the mods were. I'm like, all right, I got to get these. So I started picking everything up, and that was my first iteration. I was gifted the player's handbook, and in my DMing career, I guess you could call it, I have always made it a point to gift my players, like at my physical at the table players, I would gift them something. I would either get them their first book, I would get them their first set of dice if they already had a book. I made it a point to continue to pass that tradition forward. I was gifted my first D&D book, and I wanted to make sure that I kept passing that on. So that is something I've always done. I've always done that. So
that's a great origin story. I love it. I knew this was going to be a great idea when I wrote that idea down.
I love it.
That's
it's so
beautiful.
Cute.
Super cool.
It's so adorable. My heart.
What about you guys? What was your origin story? Reveal.
Stormy.
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay. Roughly about the same age. Totally different year, though. Pretty sure I was either 12 going on 13, like really close. In fact, I think, yeah. What happened was I used to be into this. I used to be into putting together model cars and model airplanes, and I didn't have a huge collection. I just had a few, but I liked doing it. And every time that mom had to go to the mall for something. This was back when we're talking the 80s. I mean, literally the 80s. This was back when malls were a big deal back then. And there was like what you're talking about, there was a hobby store there. Now, the hobby stores back then are a little bit different than they are now, but for the most part, it still had a lot of the same things. And this was in 1981, before there were before Warhammer existed, actually. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, like I said, I was into model airplanes and cars, and I was just wandering around in the store, and I saw there was a second story with these steps that led up to this balcony area with books up there. I was like, okay, what's that? And I went and looked, and it was honestly once I found the basic expert set, what they call a BX set, the boxes, the art on the boxes just drew me in. It's knights saving princesses from dragons. It's monsters. It was like, oh my God, what is this? I love this. I must try this out. And so I had asked my mom to get it for my birthday. And from then on there, I found friends to play with, and I'd always DM. And it was a part of my lifestyle for song for a long time. Now definitely part of my lifestyle and part of my career too. Just like you.
I never really knew about D&D all that much. Of course, I've heard of it, right? I was a wild child that spent a lot of time in the woods growing up. I did not um it was never like anything that was close to me. I never really knew anything about it. Like I knew, again, like I said, I only knew of it. Um it wasn't until I met Fate and like he was talking to me about um him playing Palladium that I was intrigued by about I was intrigued by the idea of playing a TTRPG and of any sort, D&D, whatever it was. And him and I would like theory craft and like build character concepts and talk and do all of this stuff long before I even had the chance to sit down at a table with anyone. But we just had like attempted groups where, we all tried to get together and we all tried to play. It was a baby DM with a baby crew that never, like, nobody really knew what they were doing. And it was just one of those things where like nothing really worked out. And it was not until like, I met Stormy and was just like, I'd love to play. I've never played. And, the rest is history. The rest is all streamed. And it's forever on the internet. That was my first ever campaign, was Isles in the Mist.
I love it.
That is awesome.
Indeed.
That is so cool.
Yep.
And
y'all got to see it.
I knew this would be a great story too because it opens up interesting conversation topics. One is, what was your sort of gateway into a different hobby? For Jotun, his original gateway was Warhammer miniatures, right? Which is why he was at the store. For Druid, your gateway was was your hubby. And for me, my gateway was model airplanes and all cars. And but honestly, like after I got D&D, I literally completely forgot all about model cars.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like I had all my Warhammer miniatures and I put all that, like I literally shelved it. I shelved everything and made room for D&D books. Like that was
The other interesting thing about it is Druid brings up a good point that that a lot of people who first get into D&D experience what she experienced, which is the first time they get into it, it's not a cohesive experience. I think it's great that it didn't completely ruin her view of it, because I know people who had such a bad experience the first time they ever played it that it has ruined not just D&D but all RPGs for them. And that's kind of sad.
Yeah, and also I feel like a lot of like what the groups that we were it was one group who we attempted, like two different people attempted to run campaigns and stuff. And they like almost everybody in that group watched Critical Role or listened to D&D, like like people playing D&D on like Spotify, like listening to people play, and it's all of those people like that are all experienced, and then now trying to like emulate that experience rather than trying to just play the game and see what happened. And I feel like that's a lot of, because everybody wants to create content. We want to share our story and our experience in D&D with people, but then people, a lot of like the big names, taint a lot of people's perspective of how D&D should be played. And
that's true too. That's an interesting topic all on its own. What do you think about that, Jotun?
Well, I've mentioned like in passing in my own streams, and I might have mentioned it like when I was talking with you guys during the first Bandwidth and Banter that I was on, that I don't hold people who everyone has their gateway, like you said, everyone has their gateway to games, and I ran a West Marches style game at the local comic book store. And we had rotating 50 players, not all at the same time, but we had 50 players that were in and out nightly. And a majority of them, their gateway to D&D was Critical Role. And the thing is, they had this, and I'm calling it an unrealistic expectation. Because I want people to understand that Matthew Mercer, Laura Bailey, Travis Willingham, Liam O'Brien, they are voice actors. They act. This is what they do. Yes. And to have the expectation that your game is going to be exactly like that with all the cool voices and everything that everyone can do. And to have that expectation going into the game and then ripping on the game as it's being played because it's not like Critical Role. I have had that happen. I have had people at my table literally interrupt play, and that's what it is. It's an interruption. It's a disruption. They would interrupt play with a critique. And I don't mind critiques. I welcome constructive criticism. I've always welcomed criticisms. I save that for the end. It's like, hey, what'd you like? What didn't you like? Blah, blah, blah. And mid-game, they're like, well, Matt Mercer does it this way. Okay, well, I'm not Matt Mercer. I apologize. And they're like, well, if this was Critical Role, blah, blah, and I hate to say that I did get snarky with some of these players because they were just they were unreasonable. They were becoming unreasonable. And I would tell them, it's like, if you want to play Critical Role so bad, why don't you go ahead and reach out to Matt Mercer and see if he'll have you at his table? Because it's not going to happen.
Right.
Because that is, I will give you the best experience that I am able to give you. You've chosen to sit down at my table. I have integrated you into this game. I have been amicable and accepting of, your character and their mannerisms. But I cannot give you like the Matt Mercer experience because I am not Matt Mercer. I cannot give you the experience that you would have at that table because, one, it's professional voice actors. 2, it is a show they're putting on. Like we're having fun at the table. We always have fun at the table, and they're having fun at the table. But it is a show. They know that their job is to still entertain. It's not just to keep the players involved; it's to entertain. So there are different plates spinning all at the same time that they're trying to focus on, and the value of the game diminishes when you hold other games to those standards. That is my belief. No one has to share my belief, and I will not force that belief on anyone. Yeah. But that is, I felt like the community, the Critical Role community, had become so stagnated and toxic where it was only people who wanted a Critical Role game, and you couldn't give that to them. And then when you couldn't give it to them, they complained. And it's like, well, I can't give that to you. It's not a fruit that I grow in my grove. It's not a fruit that I grow in my grove, so I cannot feed you what you want.
And in all honesty, it does you and them a disservice, them wanting you to give a Critical Role experience, because they should instead want to get the experience that you are capable of providing, which is going to be completely different than Matt Mercer or any other DM. Right.
Right.
And that's the key, really, is you can have, like, for example, we played on your campaign. You have a different DM style than I do, not that much different, but you have some differences. Yet I loved every second of it, right? Yeah. And so, like, I get what you're saying. It's but I'm gonna defend. I'm gonna do the strangest thing. I'm gonna defend Critical Role from a different perspective.
Do it. I'm ready to argue.
I agree 100% with everything that you just said. That it has kind of created this unrealistic expectation kind of culture from people who are introduced to D&D through that medium, through Matt Mercer and I guess there's a couple of other really big famous ones with voice actors. But the one thing I will say that they did do good was that they brought D&D to more mainstream audiences. They made more,
absolutely.
I mean, I honestly do believe it was a good thing. And I'll be honest, I've never watched a single episode of Critical Role. I did watch the anime series on the first season of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime. It was cute and cool, I suppose. I mean, I liked it. I loved, the voice actors. I'm a big. Here's another thing about me. I've been a fan of Matt Mercer before Critical Role ever existed, because I watch anime, and he is one of the most prolific English narrating anime voice artists. And so, I'm with you, buddy. It's. I don't blame you for getting a little frustrated and snarky with them. But that's the nature of it. Sometimes you'll find people who just aren't going to vibe. They'll go vibe with somebody else, or they won't get into D&D. That's
100%. All right. So I would like to actually kind of dive in now to some more of the topics.
Sounds good to me.
So, gentlemen, of course, we're going to start with Jotun.
No.
Obviously, this is for Jotun. We want to know what Jotun has to say.
Yeah.
No.
When it comes to crafting a campaign story from scratch, what are your steps that you take? How do you do that?
Okay. So my method has changed much over the years, and one method that I've always kept to, and I've done it since I was 13, and I still do it now. I take out my monster manual, and I flip to 2 random pages in my monster manual, and I determine that I am going to craft a story around whatever 2 monsters I pop up on my monster manual.
Interesting.
I'll close my eyes and I'll flip through it, and I would like to do that now. I have my monster manual with me. I would like to do that right now.
Sounds good to me.
And do that with y'all.
Is it a 5e one?
Yes, it is a 5e one. It is a 5e one.
Can I do is it okay if I use a Pathfinder bestiary?
Yeah, it does not matter. It does not matter. So whatever you feel like using, we're gonna flip to random page. I'm just gonna close my eyes, and whatever page I come up on is what I'm gonna get. So
you tell me what page it is you end up randomly flipping to. I will go straight to that. Sorry for the cough, guys. That's why I drank the tea, but it didn't help enough. So I'll flip to the page and show off whatever it is that you bring up.
Okay. So let me get my monster manual out here. I'm gonna flip it.
What is she doing?
I don't know. I don't know what Druid's doing.
I'm looking to see if I have the D&D monster manual. I don't think we do.
All right. Well, I'm gonna flip. I've got my eyes closed, and monster number 1.
Whoa.
If Freedy.
Okay, what page is it on?
Oh, hold up. That is. Oh shoot.
I mean, I'll
just flip to the Afridi. Page number. Give me a second.
Would that be under Jin, I think?
Yes.
The page numbers are in the bottom left.
Oh.
See if it's under Jin, it's going to be ABC.
How to book?
Yeah, how to book. Yeah, oh my gosh. Oh my
So
gosh.
what's the page number? You having trouble reading the number?
I am having trouble reading the number because my office is not very well lit. I apologize.
Oh. Okay, I gotcha.
I apologize.
Somebody needs to visit the eye doctor. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
do
me.
this to me.
I need talking about me. I need to.
Yeah, my old Viking eyes. Yeah, Val, you hush in there. You hush over there.
No, don't you dare hush. Speak your mind. Oh no, here comes Fern.
Yeah, hold up. So
why am I having trouble finding this?
we're okay. So we're doing it live, everybody, and we've completely derailed again.
That's okay. I found it. Afridi.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's for the record, it's page 145.
Okay, 145. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Ooh.
And then okay, so page 145, and then we are going to go to, and I'm going to turn my light on my desk, and hopefully
won't mess up your.
Yeah, because it'll mess with my webcam. Let's see. Closing my eyes, flipping, and we are at page. What is this? There we go. That is page. Crap. It's not page crap. Page 116, which would be a silver dragon.
Okay, so we got a silver dragon and a.
So silver dragon and an Afridi. Now these are two really diametrically different monsters. And if I were to craft an encounter, if I were to craft a campaign story around these two monsters, one might think that they're foes and there's some conflict. But what I would do is take it to another step. Think like star-crossed lovers. I'm thinking that now hear me out.
No,
So
I like it.
A female silver dragon who had been imprisoned on the plane of fire for whatever reason, and the Afridi has he's an Afridi sultan or the son of a sultan, and he has taken it upon himself to free this creature because he is madly in love with this creature. They've absconded to the material plane. And upon bringing themselves to the material plane, they needed a place of refuge. So they nestle in this mountain. They nestle in this mountain together, where they can both stay away from prying eyes and things like that. So as time goes on, if you're wanting to craft a campaign story from it, in order for the Afridi to keep the dragon safe, as time has gone on, they've had offspring. So now you have these half djinn, half dragons that they've raised into like almost an elite guard force that guard this mountain. And maybe as the dragon needs more territory for her family, for her kin, it's encroached into the local populace. Trade roads are being overrun, and they're people think it's just a bandit attack, but it's not. And I would build a story around that, and then the players, as time goes on, they would find out that it's like, okay, they think they're dealing with a dragon, but you have these half dragons that can breathe fire, when a silver dragon does not breathe fire. This is because of their Afridi heritage. So now they've got like fire resistances and things of that sort. So that is how I would craft that just in this moment with
What I
those
like
monsters.
about what you just theory crafted there is it's unique and interesting, especially for veteran players, because obviously you're turning the story on its head a little bit. You're throwing out the stereotypes, right? And on top of that, I like how you created an interesting mystery by melding them together. Now their offspring, it'll be an interesting mystery for the players to figure out, why is it these half dragons can breathe fire? They shouldn't be able to, because like you said, they're a silver dragon. And so, I think it's
another
really
thing that the players could come across is they encounter the half dragons. They know nothing of this silver dragon. They know nothing of this silver dragon. They know nothing of this Afridi. They just think that it's a fire breathing half dragon. So the players' perceptions, for those who are like, okay, what dragons breathe fire? And then maybe they think they're going into a fight with a fire-breathing dragon. So their perception is completely warped. So if you're the type of DM or storyteller or game master who wants to lift that curtain at the very end and show the surprise, it's like, surprise, it's not the dragon you thought you were going into. So they buff themselves up with fire resistances and things like that, but now the dragon breathes cold, and you're like, oh no, we prepped for the wrong thing. And then it's that moment of panic. You get to see the panic on the players' faces. Not that I like that. I don't like to panic my players, but I like to surprise them. I do like to surprise them.
Of course, it's one of the. I would dare say it's one of my favorite things as a DM, and why I prefer DMing over playing.
Same. So, Druid, you have your manual. You have your manual. We're gonna have Druid do it. So we're gonna craft something with Druid. Is that okay, Stormy? Can we craft something with Druid?
Do we want to use the Palladium one, or if you want, I can flip randomly for her with this one?
That's up to you guys.
What do you think, Druid? What do you want to
do? We're gonna do a pit devil fiend.
Okay, pit fiend.
Pit fiend and a Morlock. I don't know if that's a D&D one.
Morlocks, yeah. Morlocks exist.
Yeah. So a pit fiend and a Morlock.
Okay.
Interestingly, those creatures are not that like Morlocks. If I remember what a Morlock is, typically like to live in subterranean, underground areas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me bring up the Morlock here and show the folks the D&D equivalent of it.
Jolter's like the pit lock. Now, immediately, whenever there's a fiend involved, and a creature that is a non-material, like a creature from the material plane or from a different plane, I always think summoning. That is the go-to that I drift to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to see how Druid would combine these two creatures.
Listen.
Before she does, though, I just want to share that the Morlock is not in the 5th edition monster manual. At least I didn't find it, which is not surprising to me. If it exists in 5e, it's probably in one of the other books. I don't remember which one. I would have. But anyway, go ahead, Druid. I want to hear this story.
I got put on the spot and I was not ready, because guess what?
We're doing it live.
So may I assist a little bit? I'm not going to tell the story for you, but I think for
the thing is, I don't
your first
DM. I'm not a DMer.
Right, we know.
I've never DM'd before.
You don't
I have
no
idea what I'm doing.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about that. Just
think of yourself
really
as a
quick,
storyteller.
Really quick too.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't know a lot about D&D lore. Fun fact about me: I don't pay attention to any of that shit.
You do not have to, because When I was starting out, again, this is my oldest form of campaign crafting. I looked at the pictures and said, that monster looks really cool. And I want to use that monster.
Yeah.
Regardless of character level, regardless of, where the campaign takes place. You could have a high seas campaign. Okay, let me put in some earth elementals. Okay, I think they look cool. Let's have them here. Why are they here? So a lot of times you could just go based on pictures. Have you ever browsed online and seen a really cool picture and been like, man, I really like that. That looks cool. And you want to stick with that. You use that as a basis for whatever imaginative story or tale or game that you want to present to players or to people. So,
So Fate does that a lot. He scrolls Pinterest a lot, and that's where he gets a lot of his ideas and a lot of his concepts and stuff especially for visual aspects of his characters. I pick a vibe, and I'm just like, what kind of vibe do I want to go for? What aspect of my personality do I want to portray in this?
okay.
And then just kind of go from there. I'm very impromptu, figure it out as we go kind of person. So I don't think too terribly much about my characters. But I do when in a position, I do try to make sure that decisions are made from the character's perspective. And I do try to plan ahead for certain things, but not so much I don't plan ahead that much. But
that's just it. You don't have to. You don't have to plan. This is just to spur an idea. So you have the Morlock and you have the Pit Fiend.
mhm.
The Morlock is a humanoid creature. Is it what it says under its description?
Yeah,
Is
monstrous
it
humanoid.
monstrous humanoid? So let's go the simple route with it. The Morlock was I think in my rendition of this idea is that he was ousted by his own society. Even though Morlocks themselves are tainted, foul creatures, they're misshapen, they're not accepted by other humanoid races, he's ousted by society for whatever reason. And in a mark of revenge, he tried to summon, he tried to make a deal with a devil. And in doing so, not to kind of piggyback off of the campaign that we're kind of doing, the little one shot we're supposed to be doing. You make a deal with the devil, and in return, this devil has promised this Morlock great power. So you can make a Morlock a warlock because of the pact that he makes with him, and offers him great power and wealth if he continues to lay siege to those who have wronged him. And that's your campaign. He gathers minions, he gathers other outsiders, outcasts, and sends them out to cause trouble. So it might be bandits. You could do low-level bandits. You could do high-level devils. Maybe these bandits can summon devils because of the power that's given to them by this one pit fiend. Things like that. So you could craft an entire campaign levels 1 to 20 by doing just that. But that's my idea on it. That's just going from your monsters.
Interesting. Very cool. Little bit of trivia that I just happened to stumble upon on the web. Apparently, Morlocks as a fictional species were first created by H.G. Wells in his 1895 novel, The Time Machine. And I didn't really. Yeah, I'm. They are pretty much kind of what I imagine them to be. These kind of subterranean species of dull gray people that are kind of cannibals, and that was what Star Kitty faced off against in her first, not exactly that creature, the D&D equivalent of it, and I forget the name of the D&D equivalent of it, but very cool, very cool. So I love this. I'm going to recap what you said. You like to craft a campaign from scratch. Your spark that you use to spark your imagination and your creative juices and your creative flow is to randomly pick a couple of monsters, figure out a unique and interesting interaction between the two of them, and how you can craft a story around that. Is that right?
Exactly. And it doesn't even have to be the main story. It could be the midpoint. So you could use the dragon and the Ifriti that we did earlier. You know, maybe there's a bigger issue other than the dragon. Maybe the dragon is the mid boss. What's carrying the campaign further than that?
Right.
You know, and you can build everything again from a level 1 to a level 20 campaign. You could even run that as a one shot if you wanted to. The village is being, you know, encroached upon by these draconic soldiers, and they wield these massive flaming falchions, and you know they swoop down on these brass looking wings. And, you know, the party's like, okay, well, we fight them off. Well, we need to find out where their hideout is. They find the hideout, there's the dragon. And lo and behold, as they go to engage the dragon, you throw in the wild card of the Ifriti. And now you've got the Ifriti to deal with. So you could run that in many different ways, in many different tiers. But yeah, when I craft a story from scratch, it's usually because I looked in the monster manual and I thought that monster looks really cool, I want to use that. Or it's like, I have to run a game for some friends, let me flip to my monster manual and just drop it in.
So that's I find that really fascinating because that's a very unique and different way of crafting a campaign story from scratch. And I wouldn't have thought to do it that way. But the irony is that, excuse me, for me, the irony is that one of the questions that we have for you later on, which is crafting entertaining encounters, I use almost your exact method for for that. Like I'll either think of a monster in D&D's history that would be interesting and neat for the players to experience.
Let's cut to that. Let's cut to that question. Do
we want to jump to that? Okay.
Okay, we can jump to that one.
Okay.
So this is a good segue into that. Yeah. Tell us. We're jumping ahead to question 4. Now that you've shared that how you start crafting the total story, the campaign. How do you go about crafting entertaining encounters?
So when I go to craft the encounters, again, I look at the monster and I look at maybe the theme that I want to go with. Like for Tone of Tides, for example, I wanted hell. I wanted us to experience hell in some regard. Now, I had 9 layers of hell to choose from. I rolled a d8 and I threw out Avernus. I threw out I'm not kidding. This is what I did. I allowed it to be completely left up to chance. I left out Avernus, the first layer, because everything happens in Avernus. There's already a Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus. Avernus is featured in the Baldur's Gate 3 game. I'm like, I'm going to take that out. I don't want to use that.
Yeah.
So I left it up to chance with everything else. And upon rolling a 3 on my die, we ended up in the 4th layer of hell. And I let that go from there. And then I did the bits of research, like which devils would be in this area. Why would we do this? And to build off of Tone of Tides, since this is pretty fresh in a lot of people's minds, the encounters that I used for that, there's the blood war going on. I'm like, how can I keep it just not devils? Because devils can get stagnant after a while if it's only devils. Mm-hmm. But there are 9 hells and there are a variety of them, so there are different kinds. But I was like, no, what if we throw in demons? demons from the Blood War. So now, when the party got to parlay with Ranzak, they got to parlay with Ranzak and his men to tell them that it's like, look, we will assist you for safe passage. You know, we need help. We'll help you fight off these monsters. So here you are. And they go to help you. But when it comes to crafting other encounters for other such things, I look at what is my party level at, and I throw out challenge rating, because personally I think challenge rating doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
I don't think challenge rating matters for monsters. That is an arbitrary number that they have decided to throw into the book, because mathematically none of them make sense.
3.5 was a little bit closer, a little bit better, but I agree with you with 5e 100%.
It was.
Yeah.
I think what they tried to do was take challenge rating from 3.5 and be like, hey, here's a tough looking monster because it's challenge rating so high. I've had players take out, great worm dragons within 2 turns, and they're not even within like the last 5 levels of level 20. So you're not even going to get that far. So a lot of times your encounters can get hosed. They can get nerfed. They can get overrun, bulldozed rather. And when you take your monsters that you want to use and craft them in a way that suits you, look at your monsters, gauge your monsters, and gauge your players. I like to include monsters that both challenge my players, but also give them the ability to shine. If I want my fighter or my paladin in my group to do a lot of damage and have a really cool fight, I will throw a meaty monster. I don't care what it is. I will throw a monster with a lot of meat and hit points, so that character can have an epic one-on-one confrontation. If I have a wizard who just acquired a broom of flying, I'm going to throw flying enemies at you. Now, I want you to start throwing fireballs from the sky. I want you to do that. I want my players to be able to do this. And a lot of times when you start a game, you're getting a feeling for your characters. The DM is a player at the table. You're getting a feel for the other players at the table. And take that, determine what your characters can do, what your players can do, and give them the opportunity to shine. When I craft my encounters, I want my players to shine. Granted, I'm not putting them through a meat grinder. I am not a vicious or a malevolent DM by any means, but I do have my players have consequences for their actions. If you decide to take on the town guard, okay, well, you've taken on the town guard. Here's the consequence. You can't go back to town anymore, because they know you unless you're in disguise. But that's a what if and when if. But if they decide that they're going to go and fight the big bad guy and they're not ready for it, I will let them go fight the big bad guy.
So
whether you're ready or not.
Back to so when you first want to start crafting an entertaining encounter, do you it sounds like you're saying you think of it in context of the story you started crafting in your head. But like you said, you find a cool looking monster. Is there any other things that you do during that process of creating the encounter? Do you take into account the relative experience of your players? Are they newer players? Are they veterans? Do you take that into account when you craft an encounter?
I want to say no, because D&D is an experience, and whether you're a new player or a veteran player, there's always something to experience. So a new player will be experiencing a pit fiend for the first time. A veteran player might be experiencing a pit fiend for the first time. But the pit fiends that they might have experienced in previous games as a veteran player are going to be run differently at your table. Maybe you run them differently. Maybe you use their abilities differently. Maybe, and this is something that a lot of people they might not be a big fan of, but they alter abilities. When I first made spellcasters, like I look at the spellcaster NPCs that are always in the back of the books, like the 5e monster manual, you have the assassin or the mage or whatever. I look at their spells and I'm like, it makes no sense for them to have this spell. I'm going to give them this spell. Or if I don't want to give them class levels, like a goblin, for instance, you could have a goblin shaman. You don't want to give him a bunch of spells to just wreck your party, but I want to give him a firebolt to threaten the party. So now he's not shooting bows and arrows at you. He's shooting a firebolt at you. So that makes him more dangerous. So you just craft the encounter and you shape it just a little bit. You can tweak your monsters because your monsters, and this is how I feel that most people need to play their monsters, but it's not necessarily like, it's not the be all end all. It's not the be all end all, but have your monsters not understand that they are in a game. They are fighting for their lives, just like the party is too. The monsters don't know they're in a game. So what are they going to do? They're going to fight. Smarter monsters are going to run when the odds are against them. And the party is going to pursue. They're gonna want to take them out. Don't let them get away. Don't let them alert anybody. The monsters are intelligent. Most of them are. If you were to fight a bear in the woods and you injure it enough, it's not going to stay around. It's going to run away. That is the natural instinct of the creature. So play your monsters a little smarter. But I feel like when you going back to crafting encounters, because I get on a tangent and I apologize. I don't have a script in front of me.
Don't apologize. Nope. Do not apologize. Do not apologize. You should hear Stormy and I go on tangents.
So when it comes back to crafting unique encounters, I look at them, and if I happen to pull up on the goblin page, it's like, okay, goblins have fighters, they have rogues. Give the goblins a sneak attack, but it's not an effective sneak attack. It's not a rogue sneak attack. Maybe you half the damage. Maybe instead of a D6, it's a D4. But now these goblins are more dangerous. So you don't have run-of-the-mill goblins. When the party rolls up, veteran players, they're just goblins. Well, these goblins do something different.
On that note, I concur with you. There's many a time where I've customized a monster. Most of the time I'll use the straight stat block because that's the way I crafted the encounter. But sometimes I want it to be a little harder or a little bit easier, depending, right? And on rare occasions in my history, I've created custom monsters from scratch, and that's a lot of fun. You were about to say something, Druid?
I was actually about to ask you a question, Stormy. So, in Isles in the Mist, there's one fight that stood out a lot, and that was the you had the bog witches. So there was like multiple of the hags, and like there's the 3 different types of hags that were outside guarding the gate to the underground area,
right?
And I don't want to be too spoilery in case anybody's watching Isles in the Mist back and haven't watched it yet. It's on YouTube. It's super fun, and you should check it out. So you can figure out what we're talking about. It's super. Anyways, so like that. Obviously, you had the area picked out. Like, did you? Okay, what comes first, like the terrain or the monster for something like? Okay, in general, for both of you, like what comes first, the terrain or monster?
That's
right?
a great
because
question.
Obviously, we had to have. Obviously, there was it was a bog. So, did you choose a bog, or did you go? I wanted hags here. Here's a bog.
I would say the answer for me is, I would say more often I choose a monster first, but there are times where the setting, like you said, the terrain comes first, where I'm like, okay, I want them to fight in this swamp. So now I'm going to go look in the monster manual for monsters that live in a swamp, right? That fit that terrain and to make it interesting. And so, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that did.
Okay.
And now, for me, it's a lot of the same. So, a lot of the worlds, like I've run straight laced campaigns where there's an already established world. Eberron, Forgotten Realms, Kryn. Earth. I've run in all of those, and if I'm running a homebrew world and I drop my players into a desert, for instance, obviously we're going to have desert monsters. I'm going to have things from like jackals to vultures, mummies, skeletons, things like you have your desert themed monsters. So again, depending on where you drop your players, where their starting area is, that is what you go with. Another thing that I've done is I look at monsters and I try to determine what synergizes well with them. Lizard folk, for instance, lizard folk and troglodytes. One of my favorite low-level monsters is troglodyte. I love to use troglodytes. If I'm running a low-level game, chances are good that you are going to run into a Jotun troglodyte. And I take those and I think to myself, well, if there were hunters, would they have a pack animal? Because we would have an animal like a hound dog or something like that to chase people up trees and things like that. So I'm like, what would work? So I go with I want a big lizard, but I don't want a crocodile. So what do I want to go with? I think about Komodo dragons, monitor lizards. So now I've paired monitor lizards with my troglodytes. So you don't just have the stench of the troglodytes, you have maybe a nauseating bite from a monitor lizard to kind of throw the players off. Because if they succeed against the stench, the save against the stench, then they're not affected by it. However, you can still be poisoned. You can be poisoned by a bite from a Komodo dragon. Mm-hmm. So now there's a different dynamic in the combat. And when the party goes to take on more troglodytes, they're not just worried about the troglodytes. They're worried, are there lizards here? Are there monitor lizards here? Mm-hmm. So you look for synergistic monsters.
Yep, I agree. Quick side note for you, Druid. In the Dragon Metal Saga campaign, your individual encounter at the very beginning of the campaign, when you were first by yourself against the Ice Drake, mm-hmm. That's an example of one where I took a template and weakened it to make it so that you could actually, as a first level character, take it on. Okay. Because it's a lot. It probably, if I had done the baseline of it, it probably would have been a lethal encounter.
Yeah, it was almost a lethal encounter.
It's true, it was, and it was meant to be. That one, obviously those were meant to be, and I think what I'm hearing from Jotun is kind of what I'm getting at too. Here is that sometimes you want that encounter to be cinematic. Right? I mean, sometimes it's just an encounter and it's just for fun. But sometimes if it's part of a story arc, right, you want it to be cinematic. And you, by adding all these different dimensions into it, it makes the encounter richer and more experiential.
It makes it feel alive. It makes it feel alive.
There you go.
Because when you have synergistic monsters, it makes the world feel alive. Oh, these are two creatures that work together. They work together in this aspect. Another example I have, if I can give another example, if I'm allowed to give another example.
Absolutely.
I ran what was called the Cleaner Dungeon. And it was a dungeon where my players, they ventured in and there was nothing in there. There were no corpses. There was no organic material. There was no metal. What had happened is it used to be a dungeon that was created by a mage who had utilized gelatinous cubes. But at the bottom of the dungeon was a nest of rust monsters. So I created this rust monster queen who's pumping out all of these rust monster larvae. So everything that would go into this dungeon, whether it was, a person or what have you, the gelatinous cubes were taking care of all of the organic material because it's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the rust monsters were eating all the metal.
Yes. So they're like, why are we in this dungeon? There's nothing here. and it was like they had to continue delving further and further. They're encountering rust monsters, they're encountering gelatinous cubes, but they're not finding any loot. Meanwhile, they get to the bottom of the dungeon. They get to the bottom of the dungeon in this cave where the rust monster queen. And I've enlarged her. And this is another hint for dungeon masters and storytellers. Rob from sources that you know. And I'm using the Rachni Queen from Mass Effect as this instance. So, you know, this huge queen who's tied up and things like this. Yeah, Val was there. Val played in this one.
Nice. Nice.
So, this giant, massive. I made her like a gargantuan rust monster. So she has been gnawing because rust monsters can't break down magic items. They can't break down magic items. They can only break down like unmagical weapons. So she's been gnawing on this magical sword, and she has been like absorbing the etheric magic that is in this weapon, and it's kind of like infused her and made her this gargantuan beast. And the players are like, how do we fight this thing? So she couldn't fight a lot, but what she did do was like spout out like random shield spells. It was just like the party goes to attack shield, or the party goes to attack hellish rebuke, or a modified hellish rebuke, and it just baps the party. And they're like, oh well, we can't hit her head on, what do we do? So the big boss fight was worth it, because underneath of her was a bunch of magic items that she couldn't consume, and she just had laying around her that the rust monsters, her children, had brought to her.
That's cool.
So there was the trove. It's like they walk through this empty space, this eerily empty space, no dirt, no other critters, and now you get this big horde of just junk, like magical junk. And I loved running the cleaner dungeon.
So I have a quick question for you about your cleaner dungeon. When you conceptualized this idea of the cleaner dungeon with those classic monsters, by the way, classic D&D monsters, when you conceptualized it, did you use the method you were talking about earlier, where you thought of the two monsters first and then crafted it around that? Or did you, this particular one, did you like, oh, you know, I want to make this dungeon like this, and then fill it?
This particular one, I had always toyed with the idea, because I hate funhouse dungeons. I hate funhouse dungeons with a passion. I don't like the meat grinder dungeons. I don't like anything like those.
What do you mean by funhouse dungeon?
A funhouse dungeon is a dungeon that is crafted in a way to just kind of mess with players. There are traps, almost every couple feet. There are puzzles. There are things that are just meant to stymie and irritate players.
He's talking about Mad Mage style dungeons that have an architecture that makes no sense. They have traps everywhere. They have teleporter. Okay. Eye of the Beholder on the PC, or Dungeon Master on the PC would be an example of that. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so when I made the cleaner dungeon, I was like, man, I want to make a dungeon that has a synergistic monster, but what is going to be something that is uncommon? What is going to be an uncommon bond? So I did flip for the first monster, and I landed on the rust monster. I'm like, okay, rust monsters, but what would be better than a rust monster? And you don't want to put creatures that have metal on them. And granted, after a while, I was like, well, in a dungeon, there's an ecology, and there has to be a pecking order. Rust monsters feed off of metal. What's going to draw people in? Well, treasure. So when they go in there, you have the apex predator, which happens to be the gelatinous cube, because it can also feed off of the rust monsters. So the rust monsters had ways to like crawl in and out. So I thought about, how can I make these monsters work together? How can I build them and make them work together? Mm-hmm. So I landed on the rust monster, decided, okay, and it's a terrifying monster for a low level party. When you don't have magic items, something that can get rid of your metal armor, your paladin and plate armor at level 1, doesn't matter. Your armor's gone. So now you're just a dude in armor, or you're just a dude in leather strips. Useless armor. But yeah, I tried to build an encounter or a series of encounters where it's like, oh, you encounter one thing and then you think that's all that's in here, and then you encounter another thing. It's like, why is this here too? And it's all about the bond of those creatures, the ecology, because every dungeon has an ecology, whether we like to think about it or not. Why are goblins in the dungeon? Well, they're looking for stuff too, or maybe they're just holed up here. This is their hideout, but they don't go to the lower levels because there's something bigger down there that's been feeding off of them. So when you go to the lower levels and you find out that there are hellhounds down there, for whatever reason, there are hellhounds in the bottom of the dungeon, but you see small skeletons. So now, goblin skeletons. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Gotcha. I love it. All right. Let's move on to, let's backtrack a bit. Number 3. Talk to us, Mr. JotunRedwulf, about your DM style for designing interesting NPCs.
Designing interesting NPCs. Go with people that you know, or people that you've met. I like to exaggerate a lot of the characters that are NPCs in my world. A lot of them are either based off of celebrities. We can always base someone off of a celebrity, and I like to think of them as like a movie cast, and then my big NPCs might be like based off of Christopher Walken or something like that. But like the smaller ones, like the barmaids. The barmaids and whatnot, they will be they'll be people that I've met. Like it might have been a Karen that I've met at the store, or I might have encountered during my time in retail, and it's like, man, I really remember how horrible this woman was, so now I'm going to make her into an NPC in my game, and I hope people hate her. that's but it's take inspiration from where you can, and it's the best kind of inspiration, because again, rob or borrow from other sources, and make them your own. If there's a character that you like in Dragon Age or Baldur's Gate, you can always like flip it a little bit and change it and have a character like that. And then if it's something from a piece of popular media, people be like, oh, that person's kind of like Asterion, or oh, that person's kind of like Commander Shepard, and you kind of build off of that. But when it comes to their personalities, I go based off of people that I've met, people that I know, and a lot of times I'll be playing at the table with friends, and I'll have NPCs that are like some of the people at that table, and they have no idea, because I've made them so cartoonish. I've exaggerated them to the point where it's like, man, I really liked so and so. I'm like, I knew you would, and I just leave it at that. I knew you'd like them. I knew you would.
You're a devilish little imp. I love that.
And I hope that you exaggerate all of the right things when you put me in one of your campaigns. That's,
I don't think that's possible, Druid. I'm sorry. You're just kind of extra all by yourself.
You're already like at peak performance there. But
what's so funny is I operate at like 60-70%. Like I'm never operational at 100%.
And another thing I do the alphabets method. And it's a method that I've used for a while. I've used this one too. How many people have trouble coming up with NPCs on the spot? Go ahead and raise your hand in chat if you're a DM and you've had problems coming up with NPCs on the spot.
I don't think so. I mean,
no,
I have had to do it.
That was me asking.
But I make a list of male and female names, A to Z. I go A to Z all the way down. And when I use a name, then I work all the way down the alphabet. So you might run into Albert, the blacksmith, and his wife, Bertha, and their son, Colson. So you and you'll notice unless I have like a specific NPC, like Belial or or Scab, again, unless I have those ones in mind.
You made him up on the fly, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
I do that too sometimes. When it feels like the encounter is going a certain way, I'll inject a personality into an NPC that wasn't there, that I didn't plan beforehand.
Like Commander Bruno?
Yeah.
We all just were like, we like you specifically, random dude.
Yeah.
That happens to be standing at the gate. You're our friend now. How's your wife? Come drink with us.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, and I'm gonna call Val out because I know she's in chat. I'm calling her out on this. I had another game where we were doing just kind of like a role play sesh because we didn't have all the players, so it was just gonna be everyone in the group. And I was doing a little side quest for another party member, and I described that they're walking down the street. Now the party is a human girl, a centaur, and a kender. And they're walking down the street, and I just described that an old weathered farmer just raises his hand and he waves to them as they're walking by. And the party decides that they are going to engage with this farmer. They are going to fully invest in this whole man's life story. They find out from him that he has a long lost love, and I'm like, now I have to fully flesh out this NPC on the spot. What do I have to give this man? So I gave him a name. His name was Rolf. And then and I had to describe his lost love. And I was like, man, so I built this whole thing from scratch on the spot, and I'm like, I had other things planned, but this is okay. But I've learned to never have NPCs interact with the party, have the party interact with them first. I am not going to have NPCs interact with the party first ever again. I still do that. It's the worst thing about me is that I like to have a real world that people interact with. And that's but no, I use the alphabets method. So I have male and female names A to Z. And once I've utilized all of those, then I just think in my head, okay, names that start with A. I've got Adam, Abigail, Arthur. And, they might be normal names, your basic names. They're not high fantasy names, but you can always change it. So if you want like a high elven name out of Arthur, you could be Arthene. And now you've got Arthene, the elven lore master, and stuff like that. So I like to use that method to craft names, and then personalities just kind of come naturally. But then again, I've got 15 years of theater experience too, so I'm good at kind of like the improv end of it too. So.
What about you, Stormy?
What?
Same question.
Oh, well, like we've discussed, a lot of the times, while describing the world, NPCs end up having to be created on the fly because the players find something interesting about something that you didn't intend to be interesting, and then you just kind of, a good DM knows when to just go with the party, see where it flows, and make something out of it. But of course, when I craft a campaign, I'm gonna ahead of time craft some of the NPCs on purpose, and depending on the NPC, frequently I'll actually make an NPC out of I'll take a character sheet and I'll make a player character something that I would want to play. Something that I think is neat and unique and interesting and has a cool personality or a cool look or a cool combat style or something. And that's what will become the NPC. That's how Rylar came to be.
Aw, Rylar! God damn it, Rylar! How dare you get stabbed by that guy? stupid. I'm so mad. Whatever. It's fine. Everything is fine, you guys. All right. My heart hurts now. Anyways, gentlemen. Did I just make you jump? I'm so sorry. Gentlemen.
Sorry, that got me. Go ahead.
I saw him jump out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, he must have been extra loud. So this was actually something that I wanted to add. Because this has happened not only with Old Man Garrus when we were doing the Alien TTRPG, but this also happened with you, Jotun. I expect this to go faster. How do you like when you're crafting a shorter campaign or like a one shot or anything like that? How do you like factor in the pacing for something like that? Like how do you do that?
So one of the most precious commodities for any D&D player, DMs and players alike, is time. That is the most precious commodity for anybody. I like to think that the time that my players spend at the table is equal to the time in which they want to invest in the game. If they want to sit at the table talking and spending time, learning each other's backstories and engaging with the NPCs and checking out the world that I have put in front of them, then it shows that they're engaged. It shows that there's the interest that's there. Pacing is a really difficult thing, and it goes for veteran DMs too. Pacing is hard.
Yeah.
There is no quantifiable way to pace things unless you put your game on rails. And even when you put your game on rails, your players will find a way to go off of them. Your players will find a way to hit the brakes, and you're on the tracks for a while. So you have these times where if it seems like the role play is stagnating, say they're in that talky bit and it's stagnating, I use the pop goes the weasel. And I know I'm throwing out all these terms. I throw out all these terms, but I like to put a little crank on things where the party is doing something. They might be spending time in a dungeon, and I'll roll dice. And I'll let the players hear me roll dice. Now, it's a lot harder in a digital setting, especially when you have your microphone that will likely muffle it if you have a sound. I don't know tech terms, but if it muffles the sound and you don't get to hear me roll my dice, then it loses its effect. So you have the option to always have your party engage with something. And it doesn't have to be a conversation. It can always be an action. You could have a dog run through the center of camp. So now conversation is stopped. Why is there a dog in camp? Mm-hmm. And maybe that dog has something in its mouth and it leads you closer to your objective. But in terms of pacing, players set the pace. The DM wants to set the pace. The players set the pace. And I will argue that until the day I die. The players are the ones who set the pace. The DM is facilitating the story. And Tone of Tithes was supposed to be, at most, 2 sessions. And here we are having to schedule all the way into July.
And that's okay. You know what?
I know that's fine. That's fine. We're all comfortable with that because we're enjoying ourselves. At least I hope we are.
Yes.
What's so funny is like all of us should have known better that you had a group of our peers.
Yeah.
Like people that want to just talk to each other.
Yeah.
In character. And then you were like, we have 5 hours. Have fun.
Mm-hmm. So I
We
honestly
all should have known. We should have known.
when I craft my stories, so if I want the game to run shorter, and I've had to do this, and I'm going to use my West Marches game that I ran at my comic book store, my local comic book store, as an example. At the time, I was working a full-time 9 to 5, so I'd work my 9 to 5, and then I'd go to the store, and I would run games from 5:30 until close. So I had 4 hours roughly to get a game going for these players, to get a game going for whatever they needed. And it was a different situation every night. So nightly, I'm coming up with new and engaging storylines. So the best way I can put it is, for every hour that you're playing, there should be an encounter. For every hour that you're playing, there should be an encounter. And it's not foolproof. It's not the solution to your pacing issues.
And to be clear, just to add in what you're saying, an encounter isn't necessarily a fight with something. An encounter can be a lot of different things. So, but go ahead.
It could be an NPC interaction. It could be a combat encounter. It could be a discovery. It could be a puzzle. For every hour that you're playing, you should have an encounter. But the nice thing about putting it that way is, you know you're playing for 4 hours, so you have 4 encounters lined up.
Mm-hmm.
Things are running over on encounter 1. So that means that you have 3 encounters that you can choose to scrap. You could scrap 1. So now you're down to 3, and it just goes down to where your party ends up going from there.
Yeah.
Have your A to B point, like point A, point B, this is what needs to be done, and let the encounters kind of like resolve themselves. You can drop encounters. Yep. They don't always have to be there. Your players don't have to engage with all your content. Because if you want your players to engage with all of your content, write a novel. Write a novel.
Right. That's right. And that's the thing. I think the best DMs don't get attached to their own idea of the way things are. You can adapt your own campaign on the fly to tell the story that it unfolds before you in a collaborative method with the players, right? Because that's to me the most fun of it, is when things go in a different direction than I expected, and I think that actually like that better. I'm going to follow with that, and I'm going to find a way to integrate that into what I already have planned. And sometimes I'll move encounters around. Like if I have a certain kind of encounter planned at a certain stage in the story, but because of the way the players have played, it doesn't fit in that spot anymore. Or if they've avoided an encounter that I wanted them to have, this is a little bit behind the scenes too much, but I will actually take encounters and plop them and move them around to different times and different places because I want that encounter to happen. And it's not necessarily that you're railroading them, right? You're still following where they're leading, but you get to craft the experience and make it all fit. And that's to me, the challenge of it is so much fun. You know what I mean?
I embrace that challenge. And I'm not saying that running for Druid, Stormy, Balcony, and Ryan is challenging. This is fun. I do this professionally, guys. They say that if you do the thing you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I don't find this as I don't see it as work at all. I don't see it as work at all. This is grand fun. I like doing this kind of thing. And it's seeing the dynamics of players and seeing how they interact with my content. Like, here, I'm giving this to you. Here's this monster. Are they surprised? Are they scared? Are they bored? I love it. And I'm going to say this now. I love it when players are bored. I love it when players are bored with my monsters.
Why?
Because when, we'll take goblins, for example. Low-level goblins. People see them in every form of media, whether it's anime, like a fantasy anime, or an early game of something like Baldur's Gate. You're fighting goblins. You have these low-level monsters. goblins are boring, because I want them to be bored with them, because then I can throw a goblin at them that will surprise them. Like the shaman. Why does this goblin have firebolt? Why do these goblins have a sneak attack? That kind of thing. I love it when players are bored, because then it gives me the opportunity to craft something to surprise them with that boring monster.
Interesting. I love that. That is definitely a creative bend, and I guess I do it too, and just didn't realize it. But I agree with you. Interesting. hmm. Yeah, pacing. The thing that I'll share on my idea of pacing. You're right. What you said earlier. It's hard. It's difficult. There are times where, but and you're also right that the players set the pace. I mean, I honestly thought House in the Mist would be done in a year, but it took us a year and 6 months, a year and 8, something like that. It was a year and 8 months. I don't know. It actually was almost 2 years, wasn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was a long campaign.
And it was because
Which I loved every second of it, and I didn't think it was too long, just saying. Just throwing that out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the key is that, so I had all of these elements kind of as a guideline, a skeleton of what I wanted everything to do, but I didn't know how long it would take the players to do each of those things. And that there's no way you can ever know that. Sometimes they will blaze through, an encounter that you thought was going to be a long conversation. And sometimes it'll be the opposite, that they'll spend an inordinate amount of time having a conversation about something that's relatively minor from your perspective. But it's a great exercise to let it happen, to just let go. And it's the one moment where as a DM, I get to be the observer, right? And that's what I love about it.
I love to watch, and again, Val is in chat, and she is my longest friend. She has known me the longest. She's played it like a majority of my tables, like pretty much for the last 15 plus years. And what it comes down to is I like to watch my players and pay attention to the things they don't think I'm paying attention to, and then I make a note of it. And then when I bring it up later, I bring it up casually, the thing that they've talked about. And they're like, oh, wait, you mean? And I was like, yeah, I've written this down, and now it's a thing in the world because you guys were talking about it.
Don't give the DM ideas, you guys.
Yeah, don't give the DM ideas. Like, I'm always listening.
I was going to say, you're never going to not give the DM ideas. If they're a good DM like Jotun and I, like, you're always giving us ideas, and you can't help it, and you can't stop it.
Exactly. And the thing is, we love those ideas. Even the bad ideas become the fun ideas. We can incorporate that somehow. I don't mind. Like, I had players that didn't want to talk about a heist in front of me because they're like, well, he's just going to throw us off. And I'm like, no. I want you guys to plan your heist because I'm the one who's going to be putting the heist in front of you. So yeah, plan your heist. And it goes back to, I want my players to be cool. If you have a thief, I want him to be able to disarm this magical laser trap. I want him to be able to do this. I want the barbarian to be able to break down this massive stone door when magic fails. I want them to be able to do cool things because D&D at its core is about doing cool things. It's about beating up monsters, getting treasure. Beating up monsters, getting treasure. And however you get to that point is how you get to that point. So yeah, you make your players cool. They're the heroes of your story. They wouldn't be sitting at your table if they didn't think they could do cool stuff. Let me put it that way. They wouldn't sit at your table.
I agree. All right, so I think we have covered these topics great. I think we have a few questions from the audience, but I like Druid. Can you ask that first question?
Jolter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Asked,
sorry, the first question right there, that one.
Oh. I wanted to save. Can we save that one?
Oh, you want to save that for last? Okay.
I want to ask some chat questions.
All right, perfect.
Jolter asks, in my opinion, the Shield Master feat is slightly underpowered. What are your thoughts about adding 1d4 bludgeoning damage every time you use the shove feature? Turns the shove into a shield bash.
Okay. I mean, did you want more, Joltzer? I mean, you've just asked. All you've asked is a mechanics question. Like if you want to fashion your fighter to have access to a shield bash, then yeah, okay, use shield bash. Okay, you does a D4, like.
Yep. Like
I'm okay with it. It's not game breaking. It's
right.
not like, oh, you bash them and they go back 20 feet and then they stumble and their next 5 rolls are critical fails. That's not what happens. You want a shield bash that does a little bit of damage? Okay. As long as you take the shove action, you tell me I'm taking the shove action because that's what you've incorporated into this shield bash of yours. You take the shove action, deal a D4. Maybe your weapon's broken. That's all you've got is your shield. Okay, you do a D4. You're not that way. You're not useless in combat. That's how I'd see it.
I think it's great. It's a great answer, and I agree with you. I love customizing things with players. I even if a player doesn't come to me to customize stuff, you can ask Starkitty. I have been known to, and also for these guys, I've created custom things for them on purpose. Special boons that they get as they, that aren't in the book. Just so that that fit the narrative style of what's been going on. All the different powers that you guys got in Isles in the Mist. Those were all things that I gave you over time as you hit stages of your level development to make your characters a bit more unique than the rest of the adventuring people out there in the world. Because just like he said, you want your players to follow the rule of cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you have more questions, Jolzer. Add them. Throw them in chat now.
Listen, guys, if you have questions, we're here for them. I mean, that's why we're doing this.
So I definitely like this next question and want to hear your thoughts on it. I have my own thoughts, and we might actually differ on this, and that's okay. But Val asks, what about running from a module? Do you feel that modules give some wiggle room or too much of a railroad?
That depends on the DM. So, as someone who has run from modules, like not exclusively, I've done more homebrew than I have with modules, but I've run, everything from Temple of Elemental Evil to Expedition to Castle Ravenloft to actual Curse of Strahd 5e. I've run all of these modules, and in the ones that I've played in, and I'm going to use this one as an example because it's one of the few times that I was a player. Val and I both played in a Kingmaker campaign for Pathfinder. A friend of ours was running this, and he had in his mind the exact set way that the kingdom needed to be set up, regardless of why our characters were there. Because your characters for those of you who don't know, Kingmaker is an adventure path for Pathfinder. First edition, they've adapted to the second edition Pathfinder. But the whole point is you are founding this land where you are building a kingdom, and your party members have the option, not the requirement, they have the option to become lords and nobles and members of the community to help strengthen the community in times of war and banditry and things like that. But our DM was not flexible on how there was income in town, or had in mind which of the party members was going to be the lord. Even if one of us wanted to be the lord of this town, if we didn't fit that vision, we weren't that person. Well, you're the cleric, so you have to be the high priest. What if I want to be the lord of the town? What if I want like a theocracy here? What if I want to run a theocracy? He wasn't flexible with it. He ran everything by the book, by the letter. And I will say that I had the most miserable time with it. As a player, I had the most miserable time with it. I feel modules give you a framework, and these are great for new DMs. If you are a new DM, do not hesitate to pick up a module. There are free ones online, there are free adventures online, and don't feel like you have to invest yourself into a full campaign. You don't have to go out and buy Curse of Strahd. You can find, like, I think they've got Lost Mines of Phandelver for free now. I think you can get that one for free now. But you can take those adventures and use that as a framework. If you don't like the monsters that are in it, change your monsters. You don't want goblins, make them kobolds. If you don't want kobolds, make them ogres. You can scale and change anything you want, because at the end of the day, it's your table. The module gives you a framework. All you're adding, you're just putting paint on the walls. You already have the house framework. You're putting paint on the walls. You're decorating it the way you want to. And that will make it more entertaining and interesting for you, and especially players who have played those types of modules before. Everyone knows that in Curse of Strahd, there is an evil vampire man. There's a village beset by evil. You can change those things. Don't start your players in Barovia. Start at the other end of the map. Don't even let them see the castle yet. And now you've given a completely different experience. All of that's in the book for you. You can do it at any stage, at any point. It's just a matter of how you decide to do it. So, do I think that modules are railroady? It depends on your DM.
Beautifully said.
Yep. Here's a hot take for you. Despite the fact that I have, I don't know, probably almost a dozen multi-year campaigns under my belt that were all custom homebrew created. Despite that fact, I love modules. I don't use them very much anymore because I don't need to. Although there have been occasions where, on purpose, I will create a campaign and I'll take a module, the old school modules, not the big ones nowadays where it's like a whole thick book, right? I'm talking about the old school modules. I'll take that module and I'll stick it in the middle of the campaign as one of their encounters, right? As one of their long-term interesting encounters. And I don't do that very often. I haven't done it in a long time, to be honest with you. But I used to like to do that. But I 100% agree with you that the reason I like modules is because they're great for new DMs, but they're also great for new players too. Or let's say you have a group that you need to throw together on a short notice, and it needs to be not a campaign, but maybe just a few sessions. You know that it's only going to be a few sessions and that's all you got. I think a module is great for something like that. And just like Jotun said, just because it's a module doesn't mean you can't change everything in it or anything in it, right?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things is converting second edition or advanced D&D, really old school modules over to newer versions of D&D. And that can be a lot of fun.
But speaking on transferring modules from earlier editions to 5th edition D&D, Stormy, I have been wanting to do the Marco Volo trilogy. I want to do the Marco Volo trilogy and adapt it to 5e so bad, and I want to run it for some people.
I think that would be amazing, and there's no reason why you couldn't. I mean, honestly, it's not that hard. The monsters. You just take the monster that's in the 5th ebook instead of the monster that's in the module.
Yeah.
Super easy. Super easy. Yep.
I wanted to do it with that one, and then I also wanted to do it with it was the Myth Draenor. I forget which. It was a 3rd edition mod. It's on my shelf somewhere. I'd have to go fetch it. But the Myth Draenor, since it's 3rd edition, I wanted to adapt that to 5th also, because like you said, the monsters already exist in some in some aspect, if with a little modification here and there, and you can make it an easier or tougher encounter or a session for your players. So
yeah. Modules can be fun. But ultimately, I think as a DM, as you progress, you get to a point where you know that you have enough creative imagination that you don't really need it anymore. But it's still nice from time to time. Like you said, there's a lot of free modules, short modules that you can get from online that can be a really unique, fun experience.
And if I could plug something real quick, like go to the DMs Guild. There's dmsguild.com, and they have a bunch of resources that have been written by other creators, like adventures and things of that sort. Support those creators because they do excellent work. You can get some excellent low level modules and throw them into your campaign, and a lot of them are very campaign agnostic. So the adventure doesn't have to take place in Eberron or the Forgotten Realms. Like you could drop it into your homebrew world with a few alterations. Words are hard.
What's the actual URL? Is it DM Guilds?
Let me pull it up.
Or DM's Guild.
It's dmsguild.com. dmsguild.com. And it's free to create an account on there. Now, granted, they do have some free resources on there, but they also have some paid ones. And a lot of the paid ones are still really good too, but they are very, very affordable. They are very, very affordable, especially if you're looking for, like, I don't want to spend $20 on a module like Ravenloft or something like that. I don't want to buy that, but you could spend $3 and get a good low level adventure.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Excuse me.
Pelicanon asks, I've been thinking about this question the entire time you guys are talking about modules. Pelicanon asks, if you can pick one spell to cast once per day from D&D, what would you choose? Max 6th level. And this would be us being able to cast it IRL. I know my answer.
Go for it.
Speak with animals. Absolutely. I would cast Speak with Animals just so I could grab my bird by her little face and go, it doesn't work when you scream at me. Tell me what you fucking want. And that's all I want. I don't care about anything else. I just want to be able to be like, girl, I am not gonna hurt you when I cut your nails. It is fine. Stay still. I swear. I promise it'll be fine. That's all I want. That is all I want. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That one had me triggered for a second.
No. I get it.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, Jotun?
I've never thought about what kind of spell I would want to cast in D&D, because if it's only once per day, I can't say teleport, so I could teleport into a bank and steal money. Not that I would do that, but if I can only do it once, I can only go in one way, and then I can't teleport out, so now I'm stuck in a bank. But if I could do Dimension Door. I guess I could do Dimension Door and do the same thing. But again, I'm not advocating thievery by any means.
For legal reasons.
Yeah, for legal reasons, I wouldn't do that. No, I would probably take the Fabricate spell. Because Fabricate allows you to take raw materials and turn it into something. And then if you're doing it once per day, and you fabricate it into something that you can sell into a marketable item, then after a month, you've got 30 things to sell, and you can continue to go on and on. So you can sell those things and make a profit. So all you're doing is just gathering the raw materials and going from there. I would say Fabricate. That's the one that I would take.
Cool.
That's a good choice. I like it. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with when this question was asked in my chat that one time. I mean, I guess obviously it's tonight, but he's asked it before, and my answer at the time, I think I'll stick with it, is telekinesis, because I think it would be neat to be able to use telekinesis for 10 minutes a day in unique ways. It's not as creative and as like your fabricate could be very profitable.
Yeah, right. All you need is the raw materials. You spend your initial income on your raw mats, and then just make what you need and then sell it.
Yep.
I love how mine is, I just need to tell my bird I can cut her toenails and it will be fine. And everybody's just like, a profit and like cool creative shit. Mine's just to be able to go.
She just wants to yell at her bird.
Although, now that I think about it, like polymorph self would be, I forget which level spell that is. If it fits in his parameters, I kind of like that one too, because then you could like go be anybody. Not that I mean, I like being me, but man, can you imagine the subtle little things that you could do with that? It'd be fun. All right.
Jolter asks another question in
Okay,
chat.
go for it.
Have you ever had a PvP instance during a game or have been involved with a PvP tournament?
Yes, and I hate them. So we played, this is another instance where I was a player. Myself, Val, my IRL brother, and another one of our friends, we decided that we were this is third edition. We decided that we were going to all play Lupins. We were going to be the dog people. We're all canines. We were a pack. And when we entered into the game, the DM put us into this weird tournament-like situation where my character was not optimized for like one-on-one combat. Like I was a more synergistic character where I worked well with other characters. I did more damage if I flanked people and things like that. So me fighting one-on-one didn't really work. Like I was not made to do that. And my brother, the DM who was running the tournament, had our characters go into this situation where if we won the tournament, then we would get a reward that we had written down on a piece of paper. Well, I obviously lost. Well, my character was like the next to be chief of our pack, because our elderly father, and everyone followed my character and whatnot. Well, because like the way the lineage thing worked, we had that I was next in line. Well, my brother, who was playing my in-game brother too, he had written on his piece of paper that he wanted to take over the pack. It's like, okay, well, that ousted my character from our pack. I became an outcast. And then Val's character, who was actually my character's mate or betrothed or whatever, it came down to the DM's like, well, since he's the new chief, he gets exclusive rights to everything that was yours, and that includes your bride. And even Val was like, what are you talking about? And it threw everything off. It was a really weird situation, and I don't like tournaments. I think tournaments, unless they are imperative to the story, I think tournaments are horrible. I think they're a really bad way to encourage PvP among players. I don't like them myself. I just don't. I avoid them at all costs. Unless I'm telling you you're starting out as gladiators and you're going to break out. I will tell you at the beginning of the game you're going to start as gladiators and you're going to break out. I'm not going to make it, hey, player versus player, beat each other up. Tee-hee, no experience for you. I just don't care for them.
You're bringing up some raw emotions for this one over here, because that's literally what happened on Dragon Metal Saga this last time that we played. Was they had to break out. They ended up captured and it had to be gladiators and escape. And
Listen, that shit fucked up Thera. I'm just saying that
it'll be a great
fuck-
role play experience tomorrow or Saturday. But
I know it feels like Friday, but it's not Friday. It's Thursday.
I know, right?
So
Yeah.
we're all thrown off. We have one more question from Joltzer in chat, and then we have one more behind the scenes question.
Yeah. Before we do that, though, I just wanted to comment on what he talked about as far as arenas. I don't hate arenas as much as he does, except I do agree with him as far as if you're going to make it a turn. He didn't say he hated arenas. He said he hated tournaments. And if the tournament is going to end up pitting people against players against each other, I 100% agree with him. I don't think D&D was literally not designed to be played that way. Well, okay, that's not entirely true. It evolved to a point where it's not designed to be played that way anymore. And ultimately, like D&D isn't about PvP. It's about collaboration and teamwork to take down encounters outside of yourself. So, I don't mind using a tournament or an arena fight for like dramatic flair or something, part of the story, something interesting. But I'm with you on that. Tournaments are
tournaments for the sake of instigation are bad.
Yeah.
Tournaments for the sake of instigation are bad. Now, if it's a plot point like, hey, the winner of this tournament gets access to the royal vault. Mm-hmm. Okay, well then if the party has been trying to get into the vault the entire time, then it shouldn't matter who really wins the tournament, because the party figures, okay, if we're pitted against one another, as long as one of us wins, we're fine. And then they can meet their end goal of going to the royal vault. But if it comes down to, I just want to see who's stronger, just do a skill challenge. Just do an athletics check or something. Just do that. Don't beat the brakes off of one another just because you can.
Yep. All right. So go ahead, Druid. You said there was one or two more questions?
There was one more question from Joltzer that in chat. I accidentally skipped it, but I found it.
Okay.
Joltzer asks, do you always start your new characters out with a feat at level 1? I feel like that is a great way to give some power and backstory to new characters.
It goes back to my running 3rd edition and giving back to my players. I want my players to feel special. I want my players to feel unique at the table. I don't always do it because sometimes it can, I don't want to say it can be game breaking, because as a DM, I can balance any of my encounters any which way. If you take the sentinel feat and great weapon fighting, I've got things for that. I don't worry about the game being broken. But then again, I wouldn't give it to you if I didn't want you to have it. That's
right.
So in that question, the simple answer is yes. I give my players a feat at level 1. And that just means that if you play a variant human, you get 2 feats at level 1. Because that's what every class got in 3rd edition. You started with a feat. Every class started with a feat, and then humans would get a bonus feat. So they would already start with 2. So if you're a human fighter, you started with 3 feats, because they would get a bonus feat at first level as a first level fighter in 3rd edition. So now you have 3 feats. So now you can be a combat powerhouse and be a cool fighter like you're meant to be
at first level.
Yeah, at first level.
Yep.
So now it makes sense. Oh, I'm a mercenary veteran. That's my background. Okay, it makes sense that you can do all this really cool stuff. Now, granted, there are prerequisites. If you meet the prerequisites for the feat, absolutely take it. But if you don't, then you don't get it yet. I'm sorry. And a lot of feats like Cleave, Great Cleave, they required a base attack bonus of a certain level, which they don't have base attack, not really base attack bonus anymore, because it's a proficiency bonus plus your modifier, so it's attack bonus now.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could do so many cool things. And with Cleave and Great Cleave, I had players at I had a 4th level fighter able to cleave through an entire horde of skeletons just on his own in his turn because he didn't have to take more than a 5-foot step. Like it was insane. But the player felt cool and the party thought it was cool. So
Nice. I appreciate that feedback and that input. I agree with you. And I'll be honest with you, like I've never actually done that before, except in 3rd edition when it automatically happened. But since I started with 5e, I haven't done that before until I heard you guys suggest it as an interesting idea. And I'm like, they did that in 3.5. I mean, I understand why they don't do it anymore. They're trying to create a different kind of progressive balance. Like they want that first feat to be, oh, I earned that, right?
Yeah.
They want to experience earning it. But I also, you know me, I like my characters to be like, I want your characters to feel heroic. You know, you're the superheroes of the adventure.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I like the idea of giving them a feat or a boon of some kind. So.
Yeah. Pelicanus says, I feel like the only ones I wouldn't allow are sharpshooter just because it would one-shot so many enemies. Plus 10 damage is like adding 3d6. 4x starting damage on short bows. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Okay. We're leading into the hot take section.
Okay.
We're leading into the hot take. No. No, I'm here for it.
Okay.
You know, this is Jotun's hot take. I dislike the sharpshooter feat on Gloomstalker Rangers, but then again, Gloomstalker Rangers are meant to do insane amounts of damage and do really cool things, and I should not gem somebody's jam just because I don't like the way that mechanically you can one-shot my monsters. That's okay, but just know that when you're in the next room and there are no shadows to hide in, that's okay. That's okay. It's a very well-illuminated room. It is magical light that cannot be dispelled. You have no shadows to hide in. Welcome to the arena.
Yep. No, I get you. Part of the fun of the DM sometimes, not always, sometimes, you know, we're not out to kill our players on purpose, right? But we want to create interesting challenges for them that are unique and fun. And I've had most of mine, have done really well. There've been a few times where, like, I did an experiment and it wasn't so great, but you know, I get you.
Well, I also think, like, with the sharpshooter feat specifically, so the phrasing of the feat says that, I believe, I'm going to check this because I don't have my player's handbook handy.
Yeah.
So
Jolter says it's a -5 penalty to hit.
So it is a -5 penalty to the attack roll. And what I would interpret it as is, like, you want to hit. Okay. That just means that you cannot get a natural 20 because you are taking a -5. It is on the attack roll. It is not your attack bonus. It is not anything like that. This is coming off of the die roll, is how I would interpret the reading of the feat. Which means, yes, you hit. Yes, you will deal damage. You are guaranteed that hit. You are guaranteed that damage. But you cannot roll a natural 20 to crit with that feat. That is how I would interpret it, which is a very unpopular opinion, I would know.
Interesting.
But it doesn't impose disadvantage on your rolls. It doesn't harm your rolls. So if you have advantage, that's fine. You take a -5, which means the highest you are rolling on that die is a 15, but you get to add your attack bonus onto that to hit that creature. That is how I would interpret it. So that way you're not dealing insane amounts of damage. Therefore, I have balanced the feat for use at the table without it being broken. Besides, creatures don't have a lot of hit points. It'd be death by massive damage at that point. It'd be death by massive damage.
Yeah. What's interesting about that feat is it's got your 3 different abilities, and I think it's all 3 of the abilities that what makes it sort of kind of OP. But I don't think it's OP. It's strong.
Oh yeah, it's very strong. It is.
And what's funny is if you I know you'll get this. Looking at it, it's like, wow, they took 3.5 power attack and added it to a ranged.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, that's weird to me that they added it to a ranged attack. And also another little interesting side note. I once read an interesting article on somebody who did the math on advantage and disadvantage. And apparently getting advantage is the same thing as roughly getting a +4 to +5, somewhere in between 4 and 5. Like we'll say +4.5 added to your roll is what it mathematically ends up being when you get to roll with advantage. And so if you think about it, that feat means you are shooting at disadvantage.
Right.
By the law of averages, mathematically.
Yeah, by the law of averages. And like, isn't great weapon fighting the melee equivalent of that one?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the same time, it's like I ran, and again, this is part of Dungeon Master Evolution. This is part of Dungeon Master Evolution where, you know, you change your styles based on this. I used to ban great weapon fighting and sharpshooter from my tables because it's like you can make your character, you can have whatever feat you want, blah blah blah, but you know, you cannot have those you cannot have those feats. Those aren't available to you. And I mean, obviously, if you're basing your entire character build around just that feat, then you become a one-trick pony. You become a one-trick pony. All I can do is shoot things good. All I can do is hit things good. You know, you don't have anything else in your arsenal. And that makes for a very one-dimensional character, in my opinion. It makes for a very one-dimensional character, in my opinion, but at the same time, allowing those feats and being able to balance them in that particular way, I think works. I think it really, really works.
Yes, Cleansing Rain. Oh, it looks like she's answering you. Absolutely. Lore Master questions open for chat question, without a doubt. If you, we're getting close to wrapping up, but if you have a question you'd like to ask, I would love to hear. Cleansing Rain is a fellow DM and player. We played with him. He was the surprise person on Old Man Garrus's Alien TTRPG. And
I would vent really quick. Okay, listen. I was so ready to have some epic RP moment with Cleansing Rain's character, because as soon as he came on and he was interacting and he was talking and I was like seeing the vibe, I was like, oh my god, this is going to be fantastic. This is going to be so good. I'm so excited and this is going to be great. And then I get back on the ship and then I get murdered.
Yeah, that was a shocker for all of us. Yeah.
And then we never got to chat in character. I was so upset. That was something I was so looking forward to. It's fine. It's fine. There will be chances in the future. I just feel it in my soul somehow.
Well, Jolter, I will answer that question. Sometimes, I mean, I get what you're saying. How can you be a sharpshooter isn't necessarily a master. It's sort of is a mastery skill. I would agree with you. But there are times when people are a prodigy at something. They were born super good. Like they were born and they knew how to read sheet music and write music and play the piano just from listening to a song the first time they heard it. So there are ways that you can make it fit narratively. Oh, my character is a prodigy at this one thing, but he sucks at other things,
Okay, so Cleansing Rain says, so my question, I'm struggling with setting my minion HP, trying to make it competitive for the players, but not truly threatening. Can you give more? Can you give more so we can help problem solve?
Yeah, no, I think I
I'm
see what
not
he's.
even a part of the problem solving. I'm just here for reading questions at this point.
That's a great question. I love this question. This is sort of I mean, we're here to talk about DM stuff, so I'm going to share something behind the scenes that I don't like to share.
Yeah.
But is this a DM Stormy D secret? And that's that I will sometimes change the hit points of a monster on the fly. I might add more to it because the fight's going too easy and I wanted it to go longer. Or I might take hit points away because I'm like, okay, the party's really struggling and I have too many monsters with too many high hit points and I need to like try and balance it out. Now you can set up ahead of time where like if you're pretty confident in the way the encounter, you want the encounter to go, you can either just do the stat block or you can, if you want it to be a stronger encounter, you can imagine that the monster like Jotun was talking about earlier when he created the Rust Monster Mother version of the Rust Monster, right? The queen. Yeah. I'm sure he gave her a lot more hit points and a greater attack and a greater damage and those kinds of things, right? Special abilities.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's the key is I would say it's more important to fit your your narrative and the fun factor more than anything. But it's okay to fidget with the numbers a little bit on the fly. Now, I can understand there's some purists out there who would completely disagree with that. I totally respect that perspective. I don't run my games to be the hardcore survivalist style D&D sessions where the numbers are the numbers and things are the way they are. You know, like to me, the encounter needs to be fun and engaging and interesting. And sometimes a little bit of fiddling can make a big difference. I don't do it very often, but it is something that it's a tool. It's up to you to decide how you want to use it, if at all. What do you think, Jotun?
So we're talking minions, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be challenging and you want it to be a minion encounter. Stormy's going to want to close his ears on this one because I'm about to say something that's going to really, really agitate him probably. 4th edition did something right when they made minions. They have the same stat block as your basic monster, but they have 1 hit point.
Uh-huh.
So they hit just as hard as a regular goblin. They hit just as hard as a regular ogre. However, if your party members manage to hit them, they have 1 hit point. They go down and they feel cool for doing it. So don't nerf the stats. Let the monster be the monster. But if it is a minion like a skeleton or a zombie, and it's really, really good for like hordes. Think when Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, for those who are familiar, you know, Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli are fighting orcs, all through Helm's Deep. There's taking them out one shot at a time, and it's only one swing that's taking them out. These monsters can kill them. They can hurt them hard, but they have 1 hit point. So they hit just as hard as a normal monster. They are just as well armored as a normal monster. But because your party members are the main characters of your story, give your minions 1 hit point. Your boss monster can still have 100 hit points if that's what you want him to have. And I like what Stormy says. You know, you change it on the fly. Guess what? I do that too. I do that same thing. I change hit points on the fly. If I want the fight to last a little bit longer so players can use their cool abilities, I will do that. And then monster dies. Okay. That's a behind the scenes thing. Most DMs that I know do that. That's a very good tool to use. But if you're using minions, 4th edition again did something right when they created the minion stat, where it's a normal monster with 1 hit point. Because then you want to have a massive combat where the players are really, really cool and they've got all these mega abilities, and you want the fighter to be able to chop through 8 dudes within like the next couple seconds. Then Yeah, 1 hit point monsters are great. He hits the first goblin, he cuts him in two. He hits the next goblin, he takes his legs out from under him, and it just goes on and on and on. So the players still get to feel cool. They get to feel like they've done something epic. And at the same time, you've provided a challenge because that monster still hits as well as a normal orc, but it goes down like a piece of paper.
Yep. I like it. That's not bad. I'm gonna have to start using it. That's a tool I haven't used in my toolbox.
So just to kind of read out loud what Cleansing Raid is saying in chat, he says, yes, that was my very first thought. However, I try to do that for bosses only. I mean, for every fight, it doesn't have to come down to one surviving party member, but at the same time, there's been times where my BB was getting wiped by the party. And then he goes on to say, I'm a very new DM, so I really appreciate this.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's a great tip. I really like that one. He got leaves for ears, Ryla. I mean, you're an elven Viking, right?
I'm half giant.
Oh, half giant. Okay.
Yeah.
The pointy ears are aesthetic.
Listen. The quickest way to melt my heart is to get JotunRedwulf giggling, and then I'm just like, yeah.
Yep. He's got a great giggle, and it's extra emphasized by that model.
It is. It really is. This is my mischief model.
I like it. All right. On that note, it's about time for us to wrap up. My cough is getting worse.
Yep.
And Druid had a fun little question as the final question to wrap things up.
You were talking about this before, but might as well share it with the people. How did you break a table with dice?
Okay. So my friends, this is many years ago. I broke a table. I nat 20'd the table. Yeah, Pelican and I nat 20'd the table. No, we were playing in our friend's basement as most nerds are apt to do. And there was a glass table in the basement that we all kind of like sat around. There were like couches and chairs and whatnot, and some of us sat on the floor. And I was sitting on the floor. I had my character sheet in front of me, and I had just gotten this set of pewter dice, hard pewter dice. And we're doing something. It was some combat, and I rolled my dice on the glass table. And in my defense, I mentioned before I have a very smooth marble brain, and I thought that the cushioning from my character sheet would be enough to not harm the table. Well, I was wrong. I was extremely wrong. One of the few times in my life that I was extremely wrong. I rolled the dice on the table and the entire glass shatters. I'm sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor. The table shatters. There's glass everywhere. And I mean, it doesn't just like when it falls and hits the ground, it goes, and it was just shards everywhere. And there was a long pause where we stared at it, and it was almost like something out of a sitcom.
Yeah.
We stared at it. We looked at the table. We looked at each other. And my initial response was, I can pay for that.
But what was the roll?
I mean, I don't even remember. I don't know
if it shattered, then the dice would fall, and you wouldn't even know.
Yeah. So like it was really, really bad. And I mean, it gave us an excuse to get a better table. We don't know why we had a glass table in the first place. But it was my buddy's house. It was an old table. He said he wasn't worried about it, and I mean, I did offer to get him a new table. But yeah, I broke a table with some dice. I broke a table with some dice because I'm an idiot. That's
a great D&D story. You'll be able to tell forever, and
I will.
That's the great thing about Dungeons and Dragons or any TTRPG, guys, is that you're gonna have great stories to share with your friends. And
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it in real time because you're sharing a story with your friends. And then afterwards, you'll have stories to share with your friends.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, no.
I was honestly introduced to like other friends through that same friend, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is the dude that broke the table, right?" And then, that's how it was. I was known for that for a while.
Jolton, thank you for coming on the show, Table Breaker Man.
Breaker of tables, JotunRedwulf, me.
The breaker of tables. I love you, brother. Thank you for being a part of Stormkeep, for being a streamer of Stormkeep, and for coming on the show. Did you want to say anything else, Druid?
We love you.
We love you too. We love you guys. Listen. You guys are fantastic. You guys are phenomenal. Allow me to say one thing. Friends, those of you who are in chat who are not currently following Stormy DSSG or Druid IRL, you need to be. Stormkeep is a community of positive streamers. We all have our little niches. All of us share in nerd culture and tabletop and various other such things, whether it's video games, community. We very, very much value community. And we want to make sure that everyone is given the proper recognition and that. So please do yourselves a service and drop them a follow. Drop these wonderful streamers, these wonderful people a follow. Follows are free. You're not required to subscribe. You're not required to do anything like that. But do remember, follows are free.
I also have to say, guys, we ran into JotunRedwulf as a random raid. We randomly raided him one day at the end of What Is My Camera Doing? We randomly decided to raid him at the end of a D&D session. And I cannot look at your character, Jotun. It's just like, I cannot.
Staring contest, go.
Nope.
I will never blink.
This is a great way to wrap things up.
And it was just a super random raid, and he just kept coming by, and we just kept hanging out, and now we love him so much. And that is the beautiful thing about Twitch, is that sometimes just a random raid gets you a lifelong friend, and we're just so thankful. And so go follow JotunRedwulf for some more content. Some more D&D content in the future, more stuff, very exciting. And so you should go do that. You should just definitely go follow Jotun. Also, because his laugh is the best laugh I think I've heard on Twitch. And also, not only do you get this cute little guy here, but you also get the beautiful, other PNG avatars and stuff that he has. It's fantastic. And also, we're going to be starting a crowdfund to make it happen so we can get JotunRedwulf body pillows. Okay. So if you are in love with Jotun like the rest of us,
my gosh,
there will be a crowdfund, and we're going to make it happen. Okay, nothing is going to stop it from happening. We're going to make it happen because all we want, every one of us, just wants to cuddle with the JotunRedwulf body pillow. Okay,
Drew just wants to shake me on stream.
That's so true. I just want to go. God damn it! That's what I want. But I know other people want to snuggle. So.
No, just kidding.
yeah. Listen, Stormy, hit me. I deserve it.
No way, man. No way.
Snuggle. So.
Yep. We're gonna assault you with hugs and warmth and love. That's all you get. I'm sorry.
Squeeze me tight and whisper sweet somethings into my ear because nothing is worthless.
Well, thank you guys. I guess it's time for us to wrap up now. Thanks for coming on the show, Jotun, and we'll see you out there in the river of Twitch.
Thank you, guys.
I hate how fucking clever that was. You shooketh me. I don't know if you saw my face. It was so.
I love it. I love it. It is. It is.
Twitch.
Um,
It's a very niche joke, and I love it.
Tonight was phenomenal. I think our first episode of Legacy of Loremasters went wonderful, and I appreciate you all so much, and for Jotun for coming on the show. And we're gonna have another one next week, and I believe it's Dan Cletus. Am I right?
I did not put that on the question, so I'm pretty sure it's Dan Cletus.
Mm-hmm.
It is 100% Dan Cletus. We're gonna have Dan Cletus on for our next Legacy of Loremaster, and we're very excited.
Indeed. And also another thing we're super excited for. Tomorrow is the Minecraft server launch. It's going to be awesome. 12:30 Central Time, right here. I'm just super stoked. I can't wait to see what Druid and Banatom and Day to Day Goth and Extra Fate and Phoenix and Pelicanon and Bucket all did.
He was going by Void Creates, and he's transitioned back to Bucket Bites, and we're all struggling. So if it's going to be used interchangeably, so just be ready, guys, to be as confused as the rest of us.
And Druid obviously struggles with how she says that his name, because every time I hear it, it sounds like she's saying "fuck it bites."
Fuck it. Well, it's because I say "fuck" a lot, so everybody just expects it. Bucket Void.
All right. So you ready for a wrap up?
Yep.
We didn't put it on here, so we're gonna have to do it from memory.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to the show.
Please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below.
And if you're listening to the podcast,
please rate and review the episode.
We are Bandwidth
and Banter.
Thank you.
And good night. Goodbye. Goodbye. Awesome. Wait, we never chose somebody to rate. Oh, we don't rate on these things.
That's right.
Oh, I was just like looking for somebody to. Anyways, sorry. Bye, guys. We love you.